And what I've done is I'm just reading the chapters that I'm doing. So I haven't read ahead because I feel like when you read ahead that I've like, I don't know, like I'll forget. So I just kind of wanted this to be fresh in my mind. And wow. So so one thing I wanted to let everybody know too is what I did on these slides is, and I'll tell everybody, is I've kind of just thrown in different interviews that he has done and a TED Talk. Well, I haven't done the TED Talk yet, but I have it saved. So it's just different things. And I'm not going to like show you them. It's just if you wanted to revisit this and then once Corey sends it out, then you can click on the links. And I always like to hear his voice and see his face. And, it just helps me like when I read the book, just to kind of put, when I read books, I think of different people when I read their characters. So it's nice to hear his voice when I'm reading. So, and everything that I've added is from the book. So I have fought the good fight, I have finished the race, and I have kept the faith. And that's on the very first page with F.L. Kirby. So I guess I was really curious. What was your first impression of FL?
Interestingly enough, I had a cousin, actually my dad's cousin, that was killed in a helicopter crash in Vietnam. So I was like, whoa.
Whoa, right.
Yeah. His name's on that Vietnam Memorial thing, and you can take a rubbing of it on that black wall, and yeah, it's really kind of crazy. So I was intrigued because of that. And
and when I was reading about him, I felt like he carried himself well. Like just everything that I read, it was a very positive, even keel. He had quick-witted comebacks, which we'll get to in a couple slides, like what he said to Michael Jordan. And he just, for everything that he's been through, I just wish I had that kind of, I get wound up and frustrated and flustered, and he just kind of seemed chill. Especially, what you do as soldiers. My ex-husband is Army. And so having lived through that with Jackson, and, people always tell him, thank you for your service. Thank you for your service. But I don't think anybody really understands the stuff that they give up when they do that. And no, they don't get, enough recognition for what they do. So I guess, and thinking with that, and, when he started with his, like, think of a time that you did something. Sorry, my plant is covering that. But think of a time that you did something that, you didn't receive recognition for. You don't have to talk about it. You can just think about it, like, why do, or did you do it? It could be something you're doing right now. Like maybe, let's be honest, like as parents, we don't get quite the recognition we deserve, but we do it because they're our kids. But that's probably just a given that everybody could use that example. So something else in your life. And how does it make you feel when you don't get recognition? And would recognition change how you did something or how you felt about doing something? Does anybody have an idea of that and want to share? Well, and I think not only as a parent, but I mean, I can tell you as, a director, I will say my boss, Pastor Bob, goes over and beyond to recognize and appreciate and praise me for things that happen here at the school. But I do very little for him rather than the 21 staff members that I manage, that I do a lot for, that I'll get a thank you here or there, or wow, that was fun. But I still do it. I don't stop because I don't do it to get the thank yous. I do it because I appreciate what they do for our school and our kids. So I think it's very easy to get caught up. And for me, it was it was a nice reminder that I don't always need to be recognized, but maybe I should start recognizing other people for what they do for me and the school.
I
I
think
would bet.
sometimes, go
Go
ahead.
ahead, Melanie. Go, girl.
I was just going to say that I feel like that what helps me in it, especially the older I get, is to realize what the greater good is. Why are we doing this, and who does it benefit, and is the greater good being accomplished? And that way it takes that focus off of, well, I did this and they didn't say thank you. I used to work for a legislator, and one of the things that was pointed out to me by my direct supervisor was, we do why we do because of the name that's on the door. That name is not our name, it's somebody else's name. And that is why we're doing what we're doing, is to help that person who's representing. And so it's not our opinions, it's not what we're doing. It's just that we want to work hard. So
I don't feel like I'm the kind of person that needs a lot of recognition. I mean, it's nice to have, don't misunderstand me, and it's really nice when the parents or the teachers or something will give you some positive feedback. It's really kind of nice, but I don't need it. I feel pretty comfortable and confident in the work that we're doing, and I know it's good stuff. I'll tell you when I did not so much anymore because I'm an old broad now, but did get frustrated early on was with my husband. You know, he's clueless, ladies. He doesn't, I'm like juggling so many things, and he's a pilot, so he's gone all the time.
Oh,
And
I
so
didn't know that.
it was me and the kids. And dude, I'm holding it down here, and sometimes he didn't quite recognize or get that. He's gotten better at it, I guess, but it's the kids are grown now. I'm not in the trenches anymore, but that used to frustrate me, not gonna lie, when I was really trying to, keep it all going myself. And I'm not one, like, if the garbage disposal broke or whatever, I'm not one to call him and whine and complain. I just figured it out. So I used to be like, come on, man, recognize a little bit. So he's gotten a little bit better at it, but that used to frustrate me. But it is nice, especially when the teachers notice what you're trying to do for them.
Yes. Yes. And the reasons you're trying to do it. Like, I'm not just
Right.
doing it because, like, I do it because I genuinely care about you and I appreciate what you're
Right.
doing for the school.
Right.
Okay, I must have to use my clicker. All right. So here is where he says, "Hey, Michael." I've got all kinds of stuff up here now and I can't even, read it. "Hey, Michael," he had replied that summer morning. "Have you ever tried to land a helicopter and save your fellow soldiers while you have the enemy shooting at you?" Because, Michael Jordan, big basketball player, they're playing golf. Have you taken a big shot? He's thinking NBA basketball player. And here's FL's like, "I've got your basketball shot and I'm going to match you."
Trump you.
And if somebody said that to me, I think it would be quite humbling. Like, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
I'd be like, okay, well, my basketball shot just didn't mean anything. So I like that, again, he was very quick-witted with that. And he didn't, if you remember in the book, the only person that heard that was FL. Like, it wasn't like he said it in front of the whole group of people to make himself look good or shut Michael down. It was just yeah, your shot's okay, but I got one better. It was just a quiet, unsaid thing. The premise to this one was kind of the courage to encourage. Preparation is power. I thought that was a very interesting. And when I say, what does that mean? I literally sat back and was like, what does that mean? Like, and it could mean so many different things in the aspect of your life. Like, I just, that was that saying was pretty powerful to me. And how do you prepare? I'm not even sure I know the answers to those. It's just one of those like, preparation is power for what? To get ready for Jackson's baseball tournament this weekend, to get ready for back or summer program to start. And so your own setbacks aren't what they first appear to be. Rather than viewing them as failures, view them as learning opportunities that the building blocks for future preparation. And I always talk to my staff about that. Like, they get so worked up because sometimes maybe I'm a little stern with them or strong with them. But it's all about growth. And if we learn from our mistakes, then to me, it's not a mistake, or it's a mistake that won't be repeated.
Well, this is what we do with the kids all day long. I mean, we talk about teachable moments.
Yep.
Where they didn't fail, they just don't have that skill yet. And our job is to give them that skill and give them that preparation tool.
Yeah.
It's a teachable moment, but we're harder on ourselves when those things happen.
Yeah, for sure. Make the leap. What would you do if you knew you could not fail or disappoint? I just had this conversation. My assistant and I were meeting with my boss, and we are looking to build on for a second time. And we had our first meeting, and I brought this up. I brought this book up like that. This is exactly what I thought of when I typed this. What would you do if you knew you could not fail? I know I'm not going to fail. I know I have it to work real hard, but I'm not going to lie. I am nervous about this because it's a lot that rests on your shoulders. So I don't know if it's going to fail or disappoint, but I'm still going to do it. So I guess for me, what would you do if you knew you could not fail? I would do it because that's what I would do if I thought I was going to fail. I would just maybe do it a little differently. There is something else to consider, an emotion that might be stronger than the fear you battle, which is regret. And that stuck to me too, because I'd rather do it and fail and learn than not have tried it and say, what would have happened if I would?
Mhm.
And I think as educators, we come across that a lot. Encourage to make stronger heartened. How do you encourage? What are different things you do? I know how some of you have encouraged me, but how do you feel is your strongest way to encourage people?
I think what I've learned over the years, my team, they're all very different, and they get encouraged in different ways. And that, as you get to know your team,
Yes.
you recognize, oh, so and so likes this and so likes that. And so I try to do those, but that took time to figure them out.
And communication.
Mhm.
It takes effort.
Yeah, but that it works well because one person doesn't need what the other person needs. And it
Words to my
I
heart.
love that though, encourages to make strong or hearten. I really like that.
Yeah.
But I think we're all good at that in this line of work.
Well, I definitely think it's a quality that makes you a strong educator, director, leader, anything. I mean, because we're constantly cheerleaders for the kids, the first time parents, the parents going through struggles. I have a family that are two social workers, and their son was very interested about the different colored child in his classroom.
Hmm.
And he came across as a very typical 4-year-old way, but this mom was mortified. I was like, it's okay. She's like, no, it's not. I'm like, no, it really is, because it opened the door for us to talk to him about it. We read books. Like, we wouldn't have had that opportunity had he not said that, because it's not something we just randomly say. So yeah, you have to give yourself a little grace too.
Mhm.
And tell me
Corey is
more.
the best. Oh, I was going to say,
What?
Corey is the best when it comes
She
to
is.
encouragement.
Oh,
She really is.
amen. And
She does.
Corey,
Her notes, all of
right.
it is just absolutely the best. And I have every one of them. And that kind of stuff to me is what is important. is those types of just you go girl type of things. I don't need more stuff, as
Yeah.
far as,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm trying to downsize. I don't need the stuff, but just those words of encouragement can make a day where you feel like crap, can just take it and make it feel like sunshine. And I mean, I really appreciate that. I brag on her all the time. I hope she knows how much I brag on her.
I am humbled that you say that, and I really appreciate that. But something that Lynn just said really sparked in me, which was and something that I heard at this conference that I was at the end of last week, which is this idea that people need different kinds of encouragement. It's almost like the love languages, right? Like
Mhm.
I could buy Melanie gifts in appreciation for the immense amount of work that she does. But like she said, gifts, I don't really need more stuff, but it means something to have you see what I do and articulate what I do in appreciation. But they were looking at being mentors to people and being what they called sponsors to people. And that a mentor might say to you, this is an opportunity I think you should take. This is an opportunity that you would be able to succeed or thrive in. But as a sponsor, you're going to take that person and begin walking them into the beginning steps of this opportunity, because they need more than you just telling them that they have what it takes to do this. They need you to kind of walk them in and introduce them and then let them go as they begin to feel comfortable. And I think we innately do that for parents. If you think about, those first time parents in the beginning of, the threes class, and it's like, well, kind of the policy is like, turn around quick and let's make this happen fast. But you can just see that they need a little bit more of a slow roll into how we let go of our kiddos. And they might need a little bit of a slow roll into the expectations around, all of the different timings to all of the things that we do at school. And so we see that and we're able to shift how we are supporting them to allow for that. Like we are very good at hopefully seeing what people need and then aligning ourselves to make that successful.
He's spoken like a true leader.
Thank you.
The next part is tell me more. When someone trusts you with their dreams or desires, I keep having to move this around because if not, I look to the side. They're asking you to be their lighthouse. So when somebody comes to you and they, genuinely seek you out, it is very important. Like Lynn said, that your staff or your team or your crew, like whoever, your coworkers, that you know them and you know how to respond to them. I put that down here. One of the things that, was said to FL from when he went to his colonel, I think, and said the team needs some spiritual leading. His thing was, what do you suggest? To me, that empowered FL to, this is what I think, like he wants to hear my idea. And I try to be more mindful of that with my staff. I can say that, probably for the first 10 years, 11 years I was here, I did everything myself with the exception of a secretary or an assistant. But now I'm forming more committees within my staff and having them become more a part of the decision-making process, the planning process, so they can take ownership. Sometimes I'm afraid to say, what do you suggest? Because then if I don't want to, I don't want to like inhibit I don't want them to think that their ideas weren't good enough. So I think it's very important that when you do something like that, you tread lightly, and definitely, especially when you work with, primarily women, at least my women.
Mhm.
That's how I would know what to do.
I
The
was at a-
bottom link. Sorry,
Sorry.
go ahead, Lynn. No.
I was at a conference not long ago and they had a session on collaborative leadership, and it really clicked in my brain
Oh, I
because
like
like
that.
you, Sarah, I did everything those first many years, you know, and I felt like that was my responsibility, my job. That's why you hired me. I need to do these
Yeah.
things. But what a difference it
Mm.
made in the morale. Not that we had bad morale. We didn't. I've always been very lucky here. But um there was like a renewed energy and a spark when I started delegating.
Yep.
And you know, we had two gals go through a health and safety thing, so now they're my health and safety specialists. And you know, our nurse consultant came and gave them a certificate and a whole bit. We've had some team leaders, we've had some gals take on some projects, and boy, the energy like ramped up. And I'm like, duh, Lynn, why didn't you do this 10 years ago? You didn't have to be running around like a chicken, you
Well,
know?
and everybody always told me, give them jobs to do. And I was thinking like, yeah, I'm sure that's the last thing they want. They've got all this
Right,
stuff to do and they want me to come in and be like, hey, can you guys help me with fundraisers?
right.
But to my surprise,
Yes,
I didn't, what I did, I think where I was successful at it was I didn't go to one specific person and I put it out to the group. And
Yep.
that way, whoever wanted to come forward, I knew they genuinely wanted to do it. I didn't call
right,
anybody out. Nobody felt obligated. They
right.
brought their ideas to the table. So again, it's all on how but you have to, and again, it's trial and error. I failed
Mhm.
many a times before I figured that out.
Mhm.
So the Facebook, it's an interview with Steve Pemberton. So it's just really, it doesn't have to do with this chapter. I just, in searching and doing the research for this, I found I've watched them all, the TED Talks and the interviews. And so I just, again, to really push what he's about and what he stands for and why he was chosen to be our keynote, I just feel the more you know, the more you grow. Offer solutions. So how is this done most effectively with your team? Again, I like that wording. Can I make a suggestion? How about if you tried it this way? What are our options? When my staff come to me and they ask me a question, a lot of times I turn it around on them because they know the answers. They just want me to say yes or no. So when they ask me a question, I'll say, well, why would we want to do that? And then she would say, or why don't you think that would be a good idea? And then when she says it out loud and she processes it, she's like, aha. So, and then just some things to think about, like what would happen if as a leader, you didn't offer solutions to your team? If you just said, okay, this is how we're doing it, you're doing it, this is when I want it done by, or what obstacles do we face when looking at solutions as a team? Again, lots of chiefs, not enough Indians, lots of ideas, can't use them all. What is the outcome for the team when the solution is successful? Hopefully success. And hopefully they've grown together as a team, they've gotten to know each other better. And what happens to the team when the solution is not successful? I think that kind of, speaks for itself. But as leaders, how do you, when you have, or just as humans, I guess, when you have an obstacle in your life, how do you get through it? How do you weigh your options, solutions, try them, accept failures, defeats? Because the bottom says even lighthouses need lighthouses. And I think to me, that's the ELEA. The ELEA is my lighthouse. I'm a lighthouse to my families, to my staff, to my congregation, to my board. I will go over and beyond for any of them. But I wouldn't be able to do it, I don't think, without the energy that the ELEA feeds me. Just the camaraderie of the other directors, having the ELEA Google groups, having Corey there for questions and mentorship, Melanie right there for membership questions, becoming a part of the board and having them to bounce off just different things for the organization. So definitely the ELEA is one of my lighthouses for sure.
It was a really long time ago, but somebody that I guess was probably mentoring me said, You know, anytime you get into a leadership position, you really need to surround yourself with your own personal board of directors. So, and he said, you know, it'll be just like any other board of directors. People will come and go because they are people who might be more related to what you're doing, or they might have more insight on, you know, the problems you're facing, the solutions that need kind of some heavy thought to them, or just because of a time in your life, or a time in their life when they're more available. But to just create these people that you can kind of talk through things with, who don't have a vested interest in, you know, in your specific thing. So, you know, for me, it's not people who are part of the ELEA or even know a lot about the ELEA. It's people that are far outside of it that I can say, hey, you know, I'm thinking about this new program, or I'm thinking about this new, you know, avenue for membership. Like, I just need to process it with somebody who can separate themselves from like, oh, but I'm a member, and then that would mean this for me, because we just do that, right? We just do it automatically. If it's something that's going to affect us personally, then it's hard for us to change that mindset. So just having other people, right? Lighthouses for lighthouses, to be able to throw your ideas off of and problem solve with, I think is really important.
Yeah, like that's when you said that it affects them, like my board members that are parents, when we talk about tuition increases. And they're like, okay, I'll vote for it.
Yeah, that's hard stuff. It's hard stuff. But when you talk to somebody completely separate, they're like, okay, well,
Right.
let's look at
Oh,
the
yeah.
bottom line, right? Let's
Right.
look
They
at
help you, remind you it's a business.
this.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you need both.
I'm a huge believer in having, in surrounding myself with people that have interests totally different from my own, and having thoughts and beliefs. My dad always taught me to never be the smartest person in the room. It's difficult, but I mean, it's like one of those things that, he said you can learn from everybody. Just, listen and learn from them. So anyway, that's why I'm here, because I'm surrounded myself with the smartest people.
You sure are. Okay. Greg Anthony, this was a big chapter for me. I gasped out loud more than once. So I guess after reading it, like, what is the first thing you must talk about after reading this chapter? It was a lot to unpack.
True
Greg Anthony was a
confession,
lot to unpack.
I screwed up again. I'm not done with this one yet.
Can you not be? Okay, well, buckle up, Lynn. So I don't know. Michelle, have you read it? Guys, all right. Well, then here we go. I knew you would, girl. So this picture here is Steve Pemberton when he was a kid, and he found this picture in his file from the orphanage, from the foster system, and he was I think in his 30s the first time. He had never seen a picture of himself as a child. He didn't think they existed. So he said when he saw this picture, the memories flooded back. And actually, the picture was taken by a caseworker, and she had taken him to the park, and he was swinging. She was pushing him on the swing, and she snapped that picture. So that jolted him a little bit, because as like the next thing that says, what comes to mind when you hear the word orphan? As an orphan, they don't get a lot of history about themselves. Because I will tell you, when I was doing this, what comes to mind when you hear the word orphan, it sure wasn't all of the characters that were portrayed as orphans, like Batman and Spider-Man and Harry Potter. Like, I guess I didn't realize how much it was out there, but it was never really talked about that they were orphans. It was always like, oh, their dad died here, their mom passed away here. And you don't, when you hear the word orphan, to me, it took on a whole new meaning. And it wasn't, all of the questions that orphans had to live with. Like when I think of you know, kids in foster care. I just think of them as needing a home. I don't really think of them as, they may not have baby pictures of themselves. They may not know their blood type. It just was something that I guess I just never really had that scope of thought. And the resiliency that orphans take on. Like, imagine, you know, not having, or as, you know, he did, he had small memories of his family and then they were gone. But then you see your classmates with their families. They, you know, you hear people celebrate things on Mother's Day and Father's Day. And then you just, so yeah, when I thought, even now, like as kids, like I know they're not called orphans really anymore, but kids that are, you know, being adopted or in foster care, or no, I didn't think of all of this stuff. I just thought about the tragic situation that took them from there. And on top of that, so which in turn made me really admire Greg Anthony and Steve Pemberton for where they've put themselves and what they have mentally, intentionally overcome to be fathers and husbands. Down here, again, is another link. I don't remember which that one is. I feel like they're all kind of, it's a YouTube video, or I know it's not the TED Talk because I'm saving that one. It's a good one.
Well, with everything we know now too about ACEs and trauma in early childhood and how the brain chemistry and construction actually changes because of it, and the trajectory that a life can take when you've had early trauma, and depending on what your ACEs score and everything, it's really remarkable to
Right. And there's a lot more resources
overcome.
now. Like just here, do
Mhm.
you think the outcome would be different if Greg Anthony story happened today?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I mean, I think in so many ways it would be different. I would
Even
love to say that. Go ahead.
no, even out here in Arizona, I don't know how it is across the country, but a lot of early childhood conferences and trainings out here recently have been on trauma-informed care and recognizing children who have been through trauma in their early life and how that has changed their brain and how they will react, and things that can be done to help the long term. There's so much more research now and understanding. I think we've got a long way to go still. But I know there's a really big push out here in Arizona right now of being trauma informed. So I think even in one generation, you know, Steve Pemberton's generation, um, I'm hopeful that kiddos now who are going through some of the things that he went through are being cared for in in an improved, more educated way.
And one can hope. And you know, when you think of, do you think the outcome would be different if the story happened today? And when I'm thinking today, I'm thinking post-COVID, social and I mean, even just us as a society are dealing with so many different things than we were 3 years ago. So then you think, well, like today, like, are there really nice people out there still? Like, would somebody in this day and age with all the social emotional things going on and everything in the world, would somebody, a teacher like Mr. Sykes, just, yep, no problem. Like, would I take one of my kids that, like, are we built the same as we were back then? Are maybe lighthouses look a little different now than they did back then? And I guess that's why we need empathetic, eager, compassionate, graceful, intentional, all these things in educators and leaders, because I feel like it's up to us to raise the future to have those and to guide the ones that, you know, we lead now and offer that. So it's a big responsibility in our lap. I did like when a human lighthouse sees you in the midst of your storm, it points you towards safety and protection. In doing so, it also sends you uncompromising message of belief. Yes, the situation is difficult, but you are not alone. I'm standing right here with you and I know the way home. And sometimes that's just all you need is just somebody, doing this next project. I can't say that I would be as comfortable with it if I didn't have such a strong assistant. This is the second time that we've done it. My kiddo's a lot older. I have more responsibilities. I'm older. So, and after coming out of COVID, like if we do this and something else happens to the world, but knowing that, Jess is standing right here with me and I'm not alone and we're going to do it together, it definitely has a different outlook for me. So the lighthouse effect and the uncompromising belief. Uncompromising describes a negative behavior commonly associated with ego, stubbornness, and unwillingness to find middle ground. And when you think of that definition and all the character, the people that we were just talking about, like how does the statement relate to this book? Because you don't think of Steve Pemberton as uncompromising or Greg Anthony as uncompromising or F.L. Kirby as uncompromising. So how would it relate to the book? How do you think it relates to the book?
Well, just to the book overall, I think of a lighthouse, and I think of the very first section of it. In fact, I was reading it last night because my husband's going to be using that in a presentation that he's going to be making on Saturday. But we talked about this decorated captain that was ordering the person to move their ship. I believe it's like 20 degrees or whatever. And he was saying, no, I'm not. And he was giving all of his decoration, all of his medals, all of his, who he was. In other words, don't you know who I am? And the guy was coming, the voice was coming back, you move. He's like, no, I can't because I'm this, I'm that. Anyway, long story short, I'm not moving. I'm the lighthouse. And so to me, when I think of a lighthouse, I do think of something that is unmovable, unshakable, and something that I can depend upon. And that's something that I can take to the bank and something that's solid and stable. So I know it says uncompromising describes a negative behavior, but there are times when we have to have things that are uncompromising. That's like, this is how it's done, period. And I cannot move that, shake that, or, veer away from it. So that's kind of the way, and maybe that's taking it completely the opposite direction than what it is supposed to be in this particular context. But that's how I see uncompromising at 61 years old.
Well, and absolutely. And I don't think there's one way. I think that's why, like, how does this statement relate to this book? I completely resonate with what you just said. And I completely can see my first thought was when I typed that was the statement relate to this book. Well, thank goodness Steve Pemberton isn't an uncompromising person and doesn't have an ego and isn't stubborn and is willing to find middle ground and hear people out. Otherwise, we wouldn't have this book. So at least there are people that are not. So that's a way that it relates to the book. And just as you said, and there's some people that in some situations, they are just uncompromised. It's not negotiable. I mean, I tell toddlers that all the time. It's not a choice. It's time to clean up. So yeah. I love that. And I don't want you to think that it wasn't, because I think it's up for interpretation. There's no wrong way to interpret that. And I love that we're two different people with two different outlooks, and they're both great. So your North Star, I loved this. Your North Star is your personal mission, a goal in which you dedicate yourself and keeps you centered and focused and, be tempted to wander. Like your North Star. To me, my North Star is my son. I can get frustrated. I can get involved in work. I can get involved in friendships and relationships and dating. He's my focal point of everything that I do. Every time I get up, every time I come to work, when I make a decision, I don't think, okay, what would I do if Jackson was here? How will this benefit Jackson? But I'm always trying to make myself better, because number one, I want him taken care of better than anything. And number two, I want him to see me making things better and working hard. I don't want to just tell him about it. So, I mean, a North Star could be anybody. It could be husband. It could be somebody's job. It could be, I mean, I can't say that Adventure Place isn't a North Star of mine. It's just not center stage, but it's something that, I definitely need in my life to keep me grounded. Protect your spirit. I have this, having a place where we can simply be without explanation or justification is important. And I put where is that for you? Because I don't know where my place is. And I was like, where is there a place where I can just be me without explanation? Because everywhere I am, I'm a mom, I'm a sister, I'm a friend, I'm a boss, so off the top of your head, do any of you have that place? Because maybe I'll be like, okay, yeah, that's my place too. Because I really couldn't think of one.
I just talked about this with somebody the other day, and I said, so I have two sisters, and I'm really close with one of my sisters, and not as close with my other one for no specific reason. But the three of us went a couple weekends ago. We just had one overnight together, but it was just the three of us, and we decided what we were going to do and where we were going to stay. And then we just spent like 24 hours together. And I said, you know what? Like, those are the people who know me for who I am at my very core. I can just be myself without any care as to what I'm trying to portray in that moment. Like, I can just be me. And I know that tomorrow being me is totally enough. And there aren't many places where we can say that. That
And
being me is
being you
totally
tomorrow might look completely different.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like that. Anybody else? Or do you not know where you can be either?
I think mine is traveling. When we're on
I
the
could see
road,
that for
just
you.
driving, it's like it doesn't matter. I can lay back in my seat and sleep, or I can sit up and just, I mean, you can just be whoever you want to be.
Yeah.
We're going to towns we don't know. People don't know us. They don't know I wore the same thing 3 days in a row.
Yeah, I'll have to get back to you on that one,
okay.
but I'm definitely going to give that one some thought, because
Yeah.
I think if I could identify, then maybe my spirit would be protected a little bit more, because then I would know, like, I think I need to go to my place.
Yeah.
Untie the rope. I describe that in one sentence because in the book, first of all, it was a lot to type on how they did that. So just in a nutshell, when Michelle, untie the rope was basically what they had said was, if somebody has the rope and is letting go, wait a minute, help me refresh my memory, to the bridge. Yes. Okay. So do you let go? Like, basically, are you going to help them? And at some point you have to let people help themselves, but you don't necessarily have to let them fall. So you tie it up to the bridge and you let them pull themselves up while you're there if needed. So I like that, for people that really, staff, like, you need to empower them. You need to untie the rope. You need to support them, but don't do it for them. And to me, again, it just takes ownership, and that's one way to grow. And stand with others. So in a situation like that, like, why wouldn't you? Like, so if you have a group, like, say your staff or your congregation, or whatever you serve, why wouldn't you stand with that group? What would be a reason? And for me, it would be because that group isn't aligned with my beliefs. I'm not saying I don't not like you. I'm just saying, I'm not going to stand with you because I don't agree with what you're doing, or I have a different thinking of it. Doesn't make you wrong, doesn't make them wrong. It just makes you guys stand on your own. And what would hold you back? Well, that right there, your morals, your principles. And in thinking of that, which herd thinking was actually, it was kind of a eureka moment, because one thing when I read that sentence was my staff. Herd thinking, the tendency for individuals to blindly follow the crowd and have devastating consequences. And I tell my staff that all the time. If there is an issue or you're upset, going to each other, is fine, but all you're doing is fueling each other's fire. So you're not getting anything accomplished. This one's mad, this one's more mad. This one's mad, now this one's mad, because all we do is this. Where if you would just come to me, we can knock it out with a conversation. I can explain why it's A, B, or C. You can get a better understanding, and hopefully that will calm your flame. Because that herd thinking, you don't know the story, you just heard that, so now you're mad too. Where does that get us?
Yeah, we actually had that conversation with my staff last week.
I've had it more than one.
Well, but we're in a text age, and we have a thread that everybody chimes in on. Someone had placed something on there, and I walk in, and that's all the chatter is about, because that person wasn't there yet. And it's like, if you have something that is really bothering you, text me directly. Don't put it on the main thread if you don't want everybody to know what's going on. I mean, they get going, and sometimes I don't think they realize. I'll read them, but very rarely do I chime in on what is being said, because it's like, it's not worth my irritation. I shut my phone off, and then I'll read it all, an hour later or something. But yeah, it's can be very detrimental to the whole staff if they,
morale, everything.
Oh yeah.
And then I tell them, I'm like, and who does it hurt? The kids. Because you're not on your game, because you're worried about what the other teacher in the other room is saying about you doing, not doing. When really all you have is yourself. Stay in your lane, love your kids, educate them, protect them, do your thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So I guess, does your life have a group of people in that are this way? I think I just talked about mine. And again, like how I handle is I'm a big confronter, and I will tell you that it took me a long time to be this way, but I feel that if it's done the right way,
Mm-hmm.
in a caring, intentional, my intention is to to end the incident and to gain perspective and to give perspective, then I'm going to call you out. Like I'm going to just put it in your court. If you said it, own it, and let's talk about it. I was that person at my first center. I knew everything. Why was my boss doing this? Why was she doing that? She was just so ridiculous. Oh, just ask me. I could have solved all the problems. And I was 19 years old who didn't even have a credential in early childhood and babysat. What did I know? After I left there and became a director, I ate humble pie, and I went back and I apologized for the way that I behaved a lot of times. Because until you walk, that's again, the ELEA. Those are all people that walk my walk. They understand.
Mm-hmm.
Not a lot of people do, but they think they could do our job differently. And again, that's that herd thinking. And I was the herd leader. So I always tell them that too. Anything they try to pull on me, I invented. So it's not going to work. One other thing about this, and I will be completely honest, I have not watched it. Corey has. It's a little slow going, she said, but there is a book. So this is his first book, A Chance in the World. and it's made into a movie. So the link here is just the trailer to the movie. If it's something that sparks your interest, and it's about him being taken from his family and being put in foster care. So it is on my list to do before the conferences to watch it. Corey didn't give it rave reviews, so I'm not in a huge hurry, but it is something that I am going to do because, again, I've watched all the interviews and I've listened to the TED Talks and I've read the articles that I just think that'll be the cherry on the top for me. But it's a heart tugger. So I have a real hard problem watching movies where kids are being mistreated, whether it's scripted and they're getting paid for it or not. I don't like it.
Yeah, I do think it really does provide a great insight to his childhood that, we get bits and pieces in the Lighthouse Effect. But this is kind of, going in detail, and it's heart-wrenching. And maybe that was part of it for me, is like, I don't want to continue watching this child be abused, and it's just one thing after the next. But you do begin to see some of those lighthouse people for him, but I don't even think I made it to the end. That makes me so sad. I have a little kid who's adopted, and she did not have to deal with any of that in her situation. And she was placed in several different places in very loving homes, but still, that's not ideal. That's not what you want for any child. You want a child to come into this world and be loved and in a stable environment. And so it's super hard to just sit there and you want to just go past it. And right, that's not the purpose, but it's hard to watch.
And there
I
is a
watched
picture.
part of it.
Did you?
I
meant
watched
to
part
add,
of it.
if you Google it, there's a picture of Steve Pemberton and the kid that played him in the movie. So, and there was actually even an article, what was his name, Tyrell or something, but Steve Pemberton thought the world of him and thought he was a super good kid, portrayed him perfectly. So I don't know if that's better or worse, like to know that, is a very, real expectation of how he lived. But and I
It's
think
a hard,
yeah,
it really is one that tugs at you. And I uncovered once at work, just through a kid talking to me about being hungry, where a foster parent wasn't feeding the kids and was basically adding water to the pot of beans. And he would talk about how it was paste. And she had a bunch of kids. And anyway, I took it because I took the boy around to try to find something to eat. We were literally going through drawers. And I mean, I had chips that were stale. I had all kinds of stuff out there. That boy truly could not have pretended to have not been, to have been hungry. He was eating anything I put in front of him, and he was 15 years old and had just got off of football practice.
Mm.
And he was moved the next morning. And so I always had a connection with him because it just was kind of like the poster child for
you were his
receiving that kind of
lighthouse.
care, for receiving that kind of care. And I loved him. I loved that kid.
Yeah.
But
You
he's
were his
just one of
lighthouse,
many,
Ellen.
just one of many kids
Yeah.
that's out there in the world, really.
Mhm.
This is not something that just happens in one town.
Yeah.
It's all over.
It's disgusting. And it's, yeah. So, and really, it's not even just foster kids. I mean, it could be, yeah.
Absolutely.
We have, our church here does the backpack program where they, have the Ziploc bags and they fill them with granola bars or mac and cheese. And what they do is they take them, the school has a list of kids that are in need of that stuff, and they put them in their book bags while the kids are in class, and they can take these bags home with them for the weekend. And there's, Easy Mac things, there's peanut butter crackers, stuff that is packaged and would last. And I'll never forget at the congregational meeting when they were telling just the congregation how successful the program is, the one lady said, I will never forget, we were walking out of the school when the bell rang and I walked by a locker and the little boy opened it and saw the bag and said, yes, I get to eat this weekend.
Mm.
I don't know, like, you know, you should, like, it's just like your soul drops. Like, I walked right up to him, like, you let me know if Adventure Place needs to cut a check. Like, let me help. Like, yeah. So it's, you know, and things like that. Like, you don't even think about like being a lighthouse in that. So it's, to me, it's rewarding that I can be in a position where I can be not only be a lighthouse, but recognize what a lighthouse means to people. So.
Exactly.
Okay, so for next week, I challenge my friends to read the chapters, or you will not get a sticker. I'll get a virtual treasure box or something. But I think that's all I have. Does anybody have a reflection or connection that they want to? No?
I would for anybody who does a lot of reading, and I don't do a lot of reading, but I've been in the car a lot, and so I was listening to a book, Common Thread, not to the Lighthouse Effect, but to Steve Pemberton's story. It's called If You Find Me, and it's by Emily Murdoch. But a really, really, really great story about resiliency. Doesn't end like you would imagine.
Really? What, and I just remembered one of those links is his article was, or I'm sorry, his interview with Steve Harvey. And Steve Harvey wrote a book. That's, so they kind of are taught, it's like 4 minutes, I think. But yeah. So
Well,
they're worth the watch.
Steve Harvey lived in his car for a while.
Yeah. Yep. So all
It's,
right,
to
ladies.
me,
Well, thanks for joining.
no, I was just going to say the one thing to me that's important that I think that everybody should do is, especially with kids that are orphans, kids that are foster care, kids that maybe have parents that are not connected, is to take pictures and file those pictures away. Because that's a one thing that I know that they would tell the foster parents where I used to work was take lots and lots of pictures and file them somewhere or give them to the caseworker to put with the case. So that way, when the child is older and, you know, they may marry someone who had a wonderful life, but they have no picture to show their kids. So anyway, just a little reminder.